This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome into 5 Things here on KC Sports Network. It's 5 things to watch for Chiefs versus Lions. You're going to hear from myself, Craig Stout, Maddie Lane, the KC Laboratory. You're going to hear from BJ Kissel and Cole DeRuse, a.k.a. How About Those Chiefs? You're going to hear from The Process with Sean Barber. You're going to hear Outside the Trenches. And you're also going to hear Only Weird Games. We're all giving you one thing to watch here on KC Sports Network. Really excited to kick this off with thing number 1. And excited, maybe not the appropriate word, I guess, in some regard, because, yeah, we're excited to talk about this game for sure. This is one that it's not the most pleasant thing to discuss right now. The Chiefs' Travis Kelce situation hyperextends his knee in the Tuesday practice. A lot of concern early on. Turns out a bone bruise. The status is questionable now. It's trended in the right direction. If Travis Kelce plays, it might be in a limited capacity. Let's just say let's just say they do a little bit of load management, maybe just to try to get him on the field. What does a limited capacity Travis Kelce look like, Maddie?
I mean, that's the question we have to look at here, right? Travis Kelce needs to have his snaps managed even more so when he's dealing with an injury like this than he typically would. So you're taking a tight end. You're probably only using him on money downs. You're waiting until third downs. You're waiting till the red zone. You're kind of waiting until stuff has to get done. You need that reliable guy like Kelce to come in. You don't want to ask him to go in there and bang around with a bunch of other defensive linemen. You don't want to put him in a spot where somebody might be trying to take him out at the knee all the time. So you might not be trying to put him in a ton of yards after catch scenarios. You really just kind of want to use him as a possession receiver. And that kind of opens the door up, I think, for the rest of the tight end room to really get some extra reps and how we think they might funnel in, Greg.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a big Blake Bell game. This just feels like a time where you turn to a guy who knows the offense really, really well. You know, even if you're just living in 11 personnel a lot of the time, I can see Blake Bell being the guy just as kind of the in man on the line of scrimmage, extra blocker, gets out in some routes every once in a while, but not a guy that you're really counting on to, make a big impact in the passing game. That's going to be more Noah Gray. I could see 12 personnel with him as a sniffer, getting on the move a little bit, getting vertical, doing some of the things that we've become accustomed to with Travis Kelce. I could see a lot of both of those guys, but I just really feel like at this point, keeping Noah Gray inside what he already knows how to do within the offense, and I do think they've got a big package for him this year as he grows into it. Just leaving Blake Bell as the guy that just knows all of the positions and has known this offense for a long time just makes all the sense in the world to say, you get out there, you take as many of the reps as possible, and we'll save Travis Kelce for those most important downs.
I kind of wonder with what we saw to Travis Kelce. And look, like Travis Kelce is not a young player now. He's going to be 34 here shortly. And, we saw him at the end of last year kind of, he was running on fumes to the finish line. I almost wonder a little bit if, there was some intentionality in decisions being made to maybe try to help lighten his load a little bit in some capacity too, and try to lean on Noah Gray a little bit more. Just maybe not on key downs necessarily, but just maybe to try to help just lighten the load. I don't think they were planning on using Travis Kelce all too much as a blocker, for the 2023 season. I think that load could have been lightened a little bit. So in that regard, I think your hope is if he does have to play in some kind of limited capacity, maybe it doesn't completely alter everything altogether from a play calling perspective. I think the thing that really sucks is the call sheet was fully installed by that Tuesday practice, and I think that's where it's going to get a little bit difficult for them to navigate. Who do you think could step up, Maddie, if Travis Kelce does have to play on a snap count? That just in totality for the offense, it's not just a tight end that has to apples to apples replace, but who's some players that you think could potentially step up?
I mean, I think this is kind of not a make or break game, but this is where Sky Moore kind of either announces that he's arriving for the Chiefs to be a guy taking that big step his second year that's really going to fulfill that Juju Smith-Schuster-like usage of being a quality, reliable possession receiver over the middle of the field. It's like, this is kind of his time to shine. If he can't step up to the plate in this moment, then not that the Chiefs necessarily have to panic, but it might be time to start going back to the drawing board a little bit. So I'm kind of hoping for big things from him.
Yeah, I'm going to say in the red zone, they need a guy like Justin Ross this week. I was a little questionable whether or not they were going to keep 7 wide receivers active this week with Travis Kelce being a little bit limited. I really do truly believe that they're going to bring in more of those red zone targets, more of those guys to help get things across the line a little bit more. And Justin Ross seems to have been that so far this preseason. I can see him, once they get into the red zone, being a much bigger threat for this offense than maybe he would have been with Travis Kelce fully healthy.
Okay, so final question for you two guys here in terms of Travis Kelce. Let's say he's going to be limited and the Chiefs don't know how much he's going to be able to play in this game. Is it more likely that the Chiefs just keep all 7 wide receivers active, dressed, and ready to play on game day, or they use a practice squad call-up on a guy like Matt Bushman, or probably unlikely, but, late addition Garrett Prince coming to the practice squad? Which of those options do you think is the most likely?
Most likely, I think it's the 7th wide receiver. I really do truly believe that. I don't think that disqualifies from Matt Bushman being called up either, but I do think that if I had to bet on one of those to happen more likely than the other, it's keeping all 7 active.
I'm actually with you on that. I think, I think 7 might have been the play anyways. So that's better. And I think just there could be a potential roster crunch and some difficult decisions about the ability of Travis Kelce that you have to take into consideration with all of that too. So I think there's a lot of validity to that. I think it's 7 receivers. Maybe Bushman gets called up. I think there's some roster crunches that they're going to have to navigate here pretty quick. We just got done talking about Sky Moore. He's a second-year player. But there's some other second-year players that I think BJ Kissel and Cole DeRuse from How About Those Chiefs want to talk about.
That's right. What's going on, everybody? BJ Kissel hanging out with my buddy Cole DeRuse from How About Those Chiefs, the bearded wonder. Cole, what's going on, man?
What's up, man? How's it going? I'm honored to be on a quick little snippet here.
Yeah, no, this is gonna be fun. It's a new, not a new show, but a new style to the show that we're doing. We're gonna have a bunch of different groups give kind of their thing to watch in this game as the Chiefs getting ready to take on the Detroit Lions. And Chiefs doesn't look like they're gonna have Chris Jones. We know that at this point. And Travis Kelce status kind of up in the air. I'd be surprised at this point if he's going to play. But there's no shortage of storylines going into this one. Curious, what are you looking forward to? What's your thing to watch in this game between the Chiefs and Lions on Thursday?
Yeah, I think 3 hours ago, my answer was slightly different. But if we leave Kelce aside right now for another time, I think just watching Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes do their thing week 1, basically a mega bye. They're already crazy after a bye. So we'll go after regular season bye. It's not apples to apples comparison, but Patrick Mahomes still averages almost 300 yards a game, over 1.5 touchdowns, about half of an interception, and 31.4 points per game. That's after a bye week in the regular season. Now, opening week, it's even crazier. Andy Reid is 9-1 as a Chiefs head coach week 1, but then since Patrick Mahomes took the helm, 5-0. Dude, I had to double check my math on this just to make sure because I did all this by hand. But week 1, Patrick Mahomes averages 308.4 yards per game, 3.6 touchdowns, 0 INTs, and this is what I had to double check, 37.8 points per game. So that's definitely something I'm kind of just thinking, regardless of who's there, not there, injured, playing, Andy Reid and Mahomes are going to figure it out, and they're going to put up a bunch of points, which I honestly think they might need to against a very good Lions team.
Yeah, I was going to say you don't want to get into a shootout necessarily with the Chiefs, but we're going up against a quarterback that has gone into a shootout with the Chiefs and came out on the other side of it. On that historic game on, I think it was Monday Night Football out at the LA Coliseum after the Shakira concert ruined the field down in Mexico. They had to put the game in LA. It was a very memorable game. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm not ever going to doubt Patrick Mahomes. I think last year people doubted him as oh, what's he going to do without Tyreek Hill? And he went and won a Super Bowl. Now it's what's he going to do, at least for a little bit, without Chris Jones. And now just add Travis Kelce on the mix. They're just trying to make this guy's story and journey just so interesting and just trying to get these people to doubt him. But you look at the Lions, and they've got a lot of confidence coming in. They finished the season last year strong. They've added some pieces to that secondary. Cam Sutton, C.J. Gardner-Johnson's obviously going to want a piece of the Chiefs playing with the Eagles last year. So there's a reason that there's a lot of storylines going in this game. There's a lot of people that maybe eyeballs. I can't remember an opening game that had so much excitement around it. It's kind of dulled now. It's the time that we're recording this. The Travis Kelce news just came out. Doesn't look like it's going to be too serious based on the national reports with Ian Rappaport and some folks coming out, but doesn't look good for Thursday. But, Cole, one of the things, and I know you and I spoke about this before on the phone, it's not about Chris Jones as much as it is the way that people have talked about the Chiefs defense struggling and not being anything without Chris Jones. And you're not going to replace him. Neither one of us are going to make that case that the Chiefs defense is going to be anything close to what it could be with him on it. But one of the storylines, for me at least, that's getting missed here is that there are a number, 5-6 contributors on the defense, or starters, depending upon the personnel grouping and all that were rookies last year playing for this Chiefs defense. And all of those guys are going to be somewhat better. What do you say? Incrementally, significantly better. It's just they've had an offseason to get ready for football. I say it all the time. These guys last year, they were getting ready to be good at exercising. They were running 40s. They were doing bench press. They were doing all those things that you do at pro days and the combine. They weren't getting ready to play football. They didn't know their schemes. They didn't know what was being asked of them every day. Now you've got guys like Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, Josh Williams, George Karlaftis, Brian Cook. That's just on the defensive side of the football. Those guys know what it's like to be a professional now, and those guys are all going to be a little bit better. I just named 5 major contributors to this team, and Leo Chanel, another one, could have a interesting role, fun player, Rush Sam. But are people missing that part? I know you cover it with your YouTube channel. Make sure you go check out How About Those Chiefs. I know if you're watching this, you probably already know who the bearded guy is. But like, it's just stuff that you guys have talked about, because I just feel like I haven't heard enough about those second-year players making that jump.
Yeah, I've definitely talked a lot about the secondary, not even just with the second-year players, but Justin Reed is technically a second-year player in the Chiefs scheme, or a defensive scheme with Spags, and it's his first year ever in his NFL career having back-to-back years with the same defensive coordinator. So you factor all that in with what you said, with all the 5 players, or 5 or 6 second-year players, and then Justin Reed technically going into his second year with the Chiefs. And I'm very excited about the secondary. Little minor concerns here and there with like Snead's knee and stuff like that. And then, no Chris Jones and Omenihu right now is going to, I think, put a little extra pressure on the secondary, but I think they're going to show up and they'll answer the call. I'm also a little bit nervous. Just sometimes it takes them a little while, and Spags been saying it in all of his pressers. Give it about 4 weeks and we'll figure out where we are. I'm like, well, week 1 is tomorrow or 2 days from now, whatever today is. And so I am excited though with what to basically wrap it up here with your thoughts. I'm definitely excited about the secondary. We talked about it a lot, and with all those guys going into year 2, I expect really good things, especially with a healthy McDuffie too.
Yeah, some really smart people told me once never to judge a Spags defense before Halloween, because he's just trying to figure out what they're good at. They try a little bit of everything. They figure out what they're good at, and then they focus on that the rest of the year. And the one thing on both sides of the ball that we may see, and we'll never know, but it's kind of that gamesmanship, that chess match, that maybe Spags goes into his bag a little bit more, gets a little more creative than he normally would for a week 1 game because they don't have Chris Jones or Charles Omenihu. It's a great point that you brought up. And then on the offensive side, maybe the same thing without Travis Kelce, maybe some of those packaged, unscouted things that Andy Reid was drawing up on the beach this offseason with Kadarius Toney and some of those guys. Maybe there's some of those plays that he wanted to save till later into the season that he might have to pull out to try to give him something they haven't scouted or looked at. But those are a couple things to watch from us. I'm BJ Kissel. That is Cole DeRuse from How About Those Chiefs. Make sure you subscribe to his channel. We'll send it back to Kent.
Thanks to BJ. Thanks to Cole DeRuse, a.k.a. How About Those Chiefs. Make sure you're checking out his YouTube page as well. We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Now it's time to hear from the guys from outside the trenches. Talking about some guys inside the trenches. Tucker Franklin, Brian Hanley wanting to talk about the tackles.
2/3 of the fellas from the Outside the Trenches podcast hanging out with you here. We're down a man, Nick Lecky not here. The Big B, Brian Hanley, is here. We are talking about the offensive line, specifically those new bookend tackles for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think it's a very interesting thing to watch, Big B. First, let's start with the preseason. Not a whole lot of hitches in the giddy-up for this offensive tackle room.
No. I mean, look, preseason is preseason. The main thing you want to do is get out healthy, get some work in, which they did, and get out healthy. I think the tackles, look, I wasn't a big proponent, I guess, of Orlando Brown, but I thought he was serviceable. He got the job done. I think guys are going to I think fans are going to like Donovan Smith. He had a bad year last year, but he was hurt. He was beat up and played through injury and then didn't play well through injury. I think when you get a healthy Donovan Smith, people are really, really going to like him. And as far as Jawaan Taylor, look, it's an upgrade for the Chiefs. It's an upgrade. I'm not going to say anything ill will about Andrew Wiley. That's not my point or purpose, but the Chiefs upgraded. Let's just leave it at that.
I think that's very fair to say, especially when you talk about his athleticism. I remember when the Chiefs signed Jawaan Taylor. You look at the videos of him working out, just his athletic testing has been that's something that the Chiefs haven't really had at that position since Mitch Schwartz, probably.
Correct.
And I know there's a lot of speculation going around that this could be, I think out of training camp, there was buzz even from the team that this could be their best tackle pairing in the Patrick Mahomes era. Now, I'm not ready to go that far. I think that's a little bit of a Mitch Schwartz and Eric Fisher erasure there. I think that those two guys were a lot better than people think. I think Eric Fisher gets a bad rap. That's probably for another podcast at another time. But when you look at these two tackles, they didn't really have a lot of hiccups, as I mentioned earlier in the preseason. But if you look at the teams that they faced, the New Orleans Saints, not a terrible pass rush. Nope. The Arizona Cardinals, a pretty bad pass rush.
Right.
And the Cleveland Browns, who, when playing their starters, have a pretty good pass rush, and a guy named Myles Garrett, who's a pretty decent guy you should keep an eye on. But what are your thoughts kind of on their competition and even upgrade to competition this week that we'll see from the Detroit Lions?
They obviously have an elite young pass rusher in Hutchinson. Very, very good. The thing about him is he's not huge. It's his motor. He does not stop. So you may beat him once. He might counter you. You might beat him again, but he's not going to stop. He's going to counter a third time, even a fourth time. He's just going to keep going. So it's important that guys stay engaged, stay locked on. Mahomes moves around in the pocket. So you're going to have to stay engaged until the whistle, because with Hutchinson, he's not going to stop until the whistle blows. So that's key. And a lot of times you see defensive ends get some of those garbage sacks where the quarterback's moving around or holding the ball or backs into a sack, which, they all count. It's still lost yardage. So the guys are going to have to stay engaged. But again, with what we have in the tackle room with those guys, you mentioned the athleticism. I think it's something that they can excel at.
It's something, too, that has been a movement as of late, but I think it fits Patrick Mahomes' play style a little bit more. You mentioned Orlando Brown, and his play style didn't quite match the play style of Patrick Mahomes. Got both of those guys in some trouble sometimes. I think the tackles that they have now are more fitting to what it comes to the Patrick Mahomes play style. Very excited to see these guys play a full game, because we have only seen them play like a couple drives, or maybe 4 or 5, handful of drives at most in a game. But let's look at the defensive line for the Lions. You obviously mentioned Aiden Hutchinson. Sean Barber's going to dive into Aiden Hutchinson a whole lot more coming up on this podcast. So if you want more about Aiden Hutchinson, he is going to give you the lowdown on that. But Romeo Okwara also as a defensive end. John Cominsky, Josh Paschal, those are their other ends. As Isaiah Buggs kind of shearing up that middle, he was on the injury report, should be fine and ready to go. But Aleem McNeil as well, with Levi Onwuzurike, who we mentioned is a guy who came out pretty recently. I think 2021 is when he came out. But they've got a lot of guys on that defensive line that are very good, and I think will be a good test week one for this Chiefs offensive line that has these new tackles.
Absolutely. And another thing, it's on the tackles, don't get me wrong, to do their job on the outside, but the inside guys help too. Absolutely. And the one thing that I don't know anybody that knows anything about football, the Chiefs' interior 3 offensive linemen are the best in football. I don't care what anybody says. Those guys are the best, as a collective group, are the best in football. And they can help out. When they don't have one-on-one or double team assignments or nobody's blitzing, they can help out and chip on those guys too. It always is great to have a guard that's as good as the 2 guards that the Chiefs have that are able to help out and get back and do other things. So it's not all on the tackles. Inside guys can help too. I'm just excited to see what this offensive line can do, because as you mentioned, the best tackle duo since Fisher and Schwartz. And look, Schwartz was the best right tackle in football, and for many years didn't get to do, I don't think, that he deserved. And I'm not going to say that Jawaan Taylor is that yet, but if he is, then we got something. The Chiefs absolutely got something.
They got something indeed. All right, that's going to do it for us. Let's send it back to Kent for more 5 things.
Thanks to Tucker and Brian Hanley. Appreciate you guys. Now let's hear from the process. That's Sean Barber, our guy, Barbershop. What you got for us?
Hey, man, listen, when it comes to things to watch, man, listen, Aiden Hutchinson is a beast, and we're going to see highlights of him. It's almost like you can't stop him. You just hope to control him. And he lines up all over the field. He has sacks. He has interceptions, hurries, pressures, tackles for loss. I mean, he's a one-man wrecking crew. And what Aaron Glenn and the defense do is they move him all over the field so you can't really game plan for him. But you got to be able to designate where he is on every snap of the game, because the one time you forget to designate where Aiden Hutchinson is, that's when he's going to make a big play. And when he makes big plays, it's turnover plays, strip sack fumbles, interceptions, punching the ball out when it comes to the ball carrier. Man, he's a jack of all trade, but he is a master at pass rushing. So we got to really be careful and account for this young man when it comes to where Aiden Hutchinson lines up. There is going to be an opportunity this game for us to add and subtract. When you talk about the process, it's always a formula of a victory. So what you need to add is we got to make sure that offense starts fast and take control of this game. Let our crowd that has so much energy about this championship we just won last year, let them feed, and it becomes a feeding frenzy throughout the energy needs to be felt on all 3 phases of the game. We need to control the time of possession. We need to have, our players need to have the most poise. And then when it comes down to it, we have to create a championship mindset that we can use the entire season. And it starts today. It starts at the Lions game against the Lions. And what we need to subtract, what Andy Reid says all the time, you got to eliminate distractions. It doesn't matter if it's contracts. It doesn't matter if old OC leaves, a new OC comes back. All of those things can be distractions. You got to calm down, settle down, and you got to take control of your destiny. The Kansas City Chiefs have been the best team in the NFL for the last 4 or 5 seasons. We got to continue to play that way. And it comes down to coaching. It comes down to eliminating distractions. And least and last, we have to replace expectations with execution. Remember that quote, replace expectations with execution. Replace expectations with execution. Again, this is Sean Barber from The Process. Back to you, Ken.
Always great hearing from my guy, Sean Barber, and it's always great to talk about DraftKings. Can you believe we've had 7 months without an NFL game? It's crazy, right? Well, good thing that's over. The NFL is here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is giving you a can't-miss offer for Week 1. This week, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 on any NFL game. DraftKings is hooking up everyone with game day greatness. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every single game day this September. Check the apps to see what you get. Download now and use promo code KCSN to sign up for DraftKings. New customers can take home $200 in bonus bets instantly just for betting $5. Again, that's code KCSN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Obviously, it's been a week here at KCSN. We're very excited to welcome Only Weird Games to the show. And to 5 Things, here is my mortal frenemy, Joshua Briscoe.
Thanks, Kent. Only Weird Games will take it from here. Joshua Briscoe, Seth Kaiser, Nate Taylor. What do we want to look forward to in this game? Nate, there's something that didn't quite make the Only Weird Games cut this week. A little extra bonus special. What are you keeping an eye out for in Chiefs-Lions?
Yeah. Did you guys know that when Patrick Mahomes started his NFL career, he was most known for one thing, throwing the ball deep? I gotta say, guys, the Chiefs kind of need to get back to that old thing, right? In 2022, this is per Next Gen Stats, Patrick Mahomes threw deep on a career low 8.2%. To be fair, in 2020, he was throwing, about 11%. In one of the greatest football seasons that a quarterback has ever had. In 2018, he was throwing deep on 15% of his passes. Now, I'm not asking for that against the Lions, but I do think it's something to watch for. Most teams play the Chiefs to try to prevent them from going deep because of Mahomes' ability. How can the Chiefs zig when everybody is zagging? And with the 2 tackles that are with the team now, if they hold up, can they throw the ball deep more than, just 8% of his passes against the Lions on Thursday night?
Seth, what do you be looking for there? How can we make that work?
I really like that. I think the idea of zigging when the league is sagging a little bit. One thing I really like about that idea of him looking deep more is that this year with Sky Moore and Rashee Rice being guys that I think they'll run a little more out of the slot as opposed to Juju Smith-Schuster, who's not at all a deep threat. He did a lot of good things for the team last year, but he's not really a deep threat. And Kelce at this point in career, who they also run out of the slot quite a bit, he's not. He's still a deep threat in a sense, but it's not a consistent thing like down the field. Whereas Rashee Rice and Sky Moore both have a little more juice. Rice doesn't have great top speed, but he's got really good acceleration. His 10 and 20-yard splits are good. You can utilize some of those guys' strengths out of the slot to kind of maybe start stretching defenses with a few of those 4 verts. It's the most beautiful play call in all of sports. You need a couple slot guys. And, oh, by the way, we should probably mention the guy that had like a 50-yard gain out of the slot, Richie James. I mean, these guys, they can move a little bit. They got a little more juice out of the slot than what they've had previously, and I think that's a possibility to maybe get down the field a little more often.
Here's a little fun fact to add on top of that. Last year, do you guys want to take a guess at it real quick? How many games in the regular season, there was one more in the playoffs, but how many games in the regular season Marquez Valdez-Scantling broke 70 yards last regular season in one game?
In what? I'm going to say 4.
You say 4. Seth says 2. The answer is 3. Now it's interesting. 2 of those games were, here's a few big ball throws and take all these yardage all at once. That was against the Niners, 3 for 111, and against the Bengals in the loss, 2 for 71. That game against the Raiders, though, 6 for 90. That was a lot more in terms of receptions for MVS than the other high yardage games. But I kind of like MVS. I don't know if this is like looking for a fun prop bet or just something I'm keeping an eye out for, but especially not knowing about the health of Travis Kelce, I think this is an MVS game where, 1, it gives you the ability to push the ball down the field a little bit, and 2, how many pass catchers has Patrick Mahomes thrown the ball to on this team for more than one season before this one? That doesn't include MVS, to be clear. He just was playing football before last season, which is more than some of these guys could say. But in terms of that consistency, if Kelce's not out there, and you are talking about Noah Gray and Blake Bell being your longest tenured options, maybe he and MVS have a little bit more chemistry this year, and there's a chance that he has a bigger game. A couple big chunk plays, I think, could make a lot of sense. And we haven't even mentioned Justin Ross yet. You want to talk about some big outside speed? Seth's overcome with emotion. He's sneezing. He's so excited about Justin Ross. One more pass through for you guys. Deep shot, either a Justin Ross call out or one more name to keep an eye on, or are we just looking to throw the ball down the field?
I'm ceasing in agreement with you.
I would say Richie James. Just excellent work, sir. But yeah, I would say Richie James on the occasional, hey, he's new to the team, and we have shown no film of him running deep outside of one pass from Blaine Gabbert. So I don't know, maybe Richie James is a sneaky dark horse option.
Or a sneezy dark horse option, maybe just for Seth. We'll kick it back to Kent here, man with perfect hair and hopefully no seasonal allergies.
I'm just glad I didn't wear a hat for this one. Thanks to Joshua Briscoe, Seth Kaiser, Nate Taylor for Only Weird Games. L'Jarius Sneeze was right there. You should have snuck that in somehow. I don't know exactly, but you should have figured that out. Thanks, everybody that's watched 5 Things. Let's listen to 5 Things to watch for Chiefs Lions. Make sure you're checking out 810's pregame show before the game. And hey, the KCSN postgame show will be live immediately after Chiefs Lions. Thank you all so much. We appreciate you, and we'll catch you later.